things. So the first quorum thing, I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask if there are any public comments.
None
No?
from my
Okay.
end.
All right, hearing none, we're going to go ahead and first thing we're going to do is we're going to ask folks if they reviewed and if they can approve the minutes from May and July for the executive committee meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the May minutes.
And I'll second.
Okay, Aaliyah, did you get those folks? Who they
I
were?
did.
Perfect. Okay, and then we have some action items to review and approve, specifically presented by Clay, and I would like to get those out of the way. I would like to get those done because we did bring those over last time. So Clay, we're going to start with you, okay?
That sounds good. First of all, I think everybody knows me. I'm Clay Martin. I work in the Office of Workforce Investments for the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, and I help support the Workforce and Talent Development Board in a variety of ways. One of the ways is with policies. So let me share my screen. So here we go. So today we have 3 policies to be considered. We had a couple on the last executive committee meeting, and we didn't have quorum, so those got carried over to today. And then we have one more that was added. So the 3 policies under consideration are the co-enrollment requirements for WorkSource Oregon programs, local workforce development board certification, and local plan development and modification. So, as you've heard me present before, there are 2 groups of policies that originate out of WIOA and state law, governor priorities, and so on. One of these is called Title I policies, and these are policy areas that are operational, performance-oriented, monitoring in nature, and typically affect only local workforce investment boards and their service providers. The other group are called WTDB policies, and these are system policy areas that affect more than one partner in WorkSource Oregon, or governance policy areas for the workforce system. So I'm going to talk about each of the 3 policies and why they're here with the WTDB. Co-enrollment requirements is a system policy. It affects multiple federal programs. The Title I programs, which are adult, dislocated worker, and youth. These are in the HEC Office of Workforce Investments. The WIOA Title II, or adult education, which is in the HEC Community Colleges and Workforce Development. Title III, or Wagner-Pizer, which is employment service and is housed within the employment department. And Title IV, vocational rehabilitation. And the Trade Adjustment Assistance for Workers program, which is also housed in the employment department. And so this is a system policy that affects all those various programs, and that's why it's here before you today. Local Workforce Development Board certification is more of a governance policy. It provides direction to local workforce boards to ensure compliance with the specific requirements of WIOA on behalf of the governor. And finally, local plan development and modification is kind of both. Local plans reflect the work of all the partners in the system, and the policy provides direction to local boards regarding the priorities and content for local planning required by WIOA. So the effect of local plans involving all those partners, and in addition to the direction provided on the contents of the plan, make it kind of both system and governance. These policies, all 3 of them, were developed collaboratively, reviewed by subject matter experts internally, and also subject matter experts with partners. They were shepherded by the Workforce and Talent Development Board's policy work group, um, which includes representatives from a variety of different programs, a variety of both from the both in the workforce centers as well as in the state offices. And these drafts have been posted for public comment. And finally, they are coming to you for approval. The policies have been included in your packet. I'm not going to go through each one individually. Today, I'll briefly cover why the policies are needed and what the policy does, and then I'll conclude with the recommended action. So first, co-enrollment. WIOA envisions a strategically aligned and coordinated workforce development system. One aspect of such a system is that individuals who seek one type of employment-related service can also be connected to others that may help them reach their employment goals. Co-enrollment across programs ensures the maximum availability of resources as well, so that program participants have all the various things that they might qualify for, and that this co-enrollment, overlapping or braiding services together, will likely lead to improved service outcomes. This is broadly applicable, although this specific policy is a little narrower to very specific programs. So those specific programs in this case are the Dislocated Worker Program and the Trade Adjustment Assistance Program. Under WIOA, and with direction from the U.S. Department of Labor, we are required to co-enroll those two programs unless a customer refuses enrollment in or does not meet the eligibility requirements for one or the other programs. We have a threshold that of that co-enrollment that we are supposed to achieve of 75%. The Department of Labor found in a recent monitoring that we were close but didn't quite meet that 75%. And so this is one of the reasons why the policy is before you today, in order to encourage a policy practice where job seekers are enrolled in more than one WIO program concurrently. It's important to note that one of those two programs, specific programs that I mentioned, the Trade Adjustment Assistance Program, which is designed to help workers who've lost their jobs or had their wages reduced due to foreign trade, has not had new petitions certified since 2022. And it's unlikely that new petitions will be certified into the future. Those who are still eligible and receiving, those who have been previously approved are still eligible for benefits. So finally, the policy itself will encourage, or we expect it to encourage, additional co-enrollment. And it also provides us with sort of motivation and impetus to review the numbers more comprehensively and consistently. One of the things that we have thought about this particular 75% is that it may in fact be less of an actual problem and more of a reporting problem. And so this policy will help us to discover that particular aspect of it. So now, next, Local Workforce Development Board certification. The certification policy itself is required by WIOA. WIOA requires that the governor certify local boards and address decertification where applicable once every 2 years. One local board for each local area in the state. Currently, we have 9. This biennial review of items, the biennial review of items covered by the certification policy is also a good governance practice, even if it were not required. The policy and the areas covered by the policy also has a U.S. Department of Labor connection. DOL identified a few issues and concerns with past local board recertification. These issues and concerns have all been addressed and resolved. The certification policy itself is one that will review any of the agreements between chief elected officials. Chief elected officials within each local area are those that are primarily county commissioners, although not exclusively. And there is agreement between those counties to provide sort of a legal and financial backstop to local boards. And that agreement is one of the components of certification. We, as a part of it, review the local board's bylaws to ensure that they comply with WIOA. We review membership to ensure that it also complies with WIOA. And finally, we check through the process on their each local board's successful performance and fiscal integrity. And then finally, it addresses whether whether someone may or whether a local board has failed to be recertified, but that has never happened in Oregon. Ultimately, the governor's office issues a letter communicating recertification after staff review. As a note for implementation, that staff review is actually just beginning. We've sent out information to local boards and requested documents to recertify them. And we've given them through the end of September. Typically, as you would have seen in the policy, this is required by the end of June every other year. But we've held up the process just a little bit because of this policy. But that's underway now. And the third and final policy is local plan development and modification. The local planning policy is also required by WIOA. It requires that local development boards submit plans that comply with WIOA every 4 years for the approval of the governor. Now, in this, the WTDB approves plans, local board plans on behalf of the governor in this instance. WIOA also requires local workforce development boards to review their plans at the end of a 2-year period for modification based on specific criteria. If those criteria are met, they have to do a modification, and if they're not met, they may do a modification. This is a new policy that includes the expectations about local plans being aligned with the WTDB strategic plan, the governor and other identified priorities, WIOA, of course, and regional and local priorities. It also includes the requirements for the 2-year modification, but provides information on, just what I had shared a moment ago about the flexibility of the 2-year modification. It is important to note, though, that it is likely that we will, at the state level, require local boards to do a modification at that 2-year mark, which, for your information, would be in the spring of 2026 to respond to the new WTDB strategic plan, and in addition to any of the required elements. And finally, the local plan policy provides a connection to the plan template, which includes all of the resources and requirements for local planning. And questions, if there are any questions before recommendations. Josh.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I want to go back to the co-enrollment policy there. And I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. When we're using the word strongly encourage, we're talking about all of the programs that may not be required under co-enrollment. But when we're talking about the trade and dislocated worker programs, we're saying that co-enrollment is required there. If I'm reading that right.
Correct. That's okay. You're correct. That's exactly right.
And then the other thing I wanted to just, and this is off these policy requirements, but Sherry, I don't know if we needed to vote on the meeting minutes or not. I know we did a motion to approve, but
you know what?
To do a vote.
You are absolutely right. I was so hyper focused on getting Clay, so we'll circle back around that before we finish our deal. Thank you for that.
Okay, Ann.
Did you hear any concerns or feedback from the local centers or any of those folks? I don't know if Kim's on the line or not. Any
Well,
concerns or
if she is, I would certainly defer to her, but no, we did not. Each policy individually um, goes to local boards in two ways. First, we send it to them to what we call their subject matter experts. Initially, it goes to their executive director, which would include Kim, for example, and then they would pass it along to their staff, whoever would be most appropriate to review the policy, and then they would provide feedback to us. Then, once those revisions are accounted for, they get a second chance, although we hope that we would have got all of it on the first try, but they still get a second chance when we send it out for formal public comment, where anybody and everybody can comment on the policy. And in all cases, we got, uh, I can't remember all of the details, but the few comments that we got were not substantive. They were just little tweaks here and there.
Hi, everybody. This is Kim. Sorry, I'm on the road, so I apologize for the road noise. But thanks for asking the question, Anne. The only thing that I would say specifically around the co-enrollment policy is, particularly when it comes to the Trade Act program, we've been working on improving our co-enrollment numbers for a couple of years already, because we recognize that that was an issue with the feds. And we had some systemic issues and challenges, I would say, that we have been working through. So I think that the workforce boards are good and are comfortable with these policies.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I guess what I want to say to the executive committee and for us to communicate to the board, we've had meetings where I think this type of work goes unnoticed, or it's not clear to the board that this is part of the work of the WTDB and that you all are doing this work. And this is some of that heavy lifting work. And you mentioned, Clay, the levels of opportunities for engagement in this process. And these are points where anyone on this board could give input and impact. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I mean, there are some parts in the process that you would not be aware of, but to the extent that you are aware of and interested in, there are opportunities to participate all along the way. Yes.
And there are public opportunities for the general public, correct?
Yes. The formal public comment process is posted on our website, and we distribute notification as far and wide, and we hope and ask, or we ask and hope, I should say, that the distribution that we have would be distributed even further than that. So all of the anybody could have access to participate in the process at that point.
The reason I'm cross-examining you like a lawyer is because I want to elicit the fact that, that we do have opportunities on this board to shape policy that are different than, let's say, we said so, this is our stamp, but that we can be active participants in the execution of the work that naturally sits with the staff. I mean, it's not possible for us as board members to do all this. And so sometimes that both the impact of this type of work and the fact that the work happens gets a little lost. That's all I'm trying to highlight and encourage people. Yes, go ahead, Clay.
Well, just very quickly, thank you for that, Sherry. And just very quickly, just for everybody's information, that Workforce and Talent Development Board Policy Work Group does include Todd, so he's definitely a connecting point. It includes Kurt Tackman, who you've seen before, and Jim Farr, who you might remember. Andrew, he works as the division manager under the director, Andrew, who is here attending. So there are a variety of different folks who are involved. if there was ever a desire to get involved in that work group, someone who wanted to really dig in, that opportunity is also available.
Mhm. And I think it may be helpful as a point of reference when we begin these types of projects to point out to the board, hey, the work group is forming, anybody want to join, and or public comments. Because I do want us, I think there are some lingering questions about what kind of impact the board can have. And I think this is a prime example in a way that we may not always think about. So. So if you, before you give your call for approval, I'm going to go back to the meeting minutes. We had a motion and a second. So can we first have everyone who is in favor of passing the meeting minutes, excuse me, the meeting minutes from, I believe it is, was it May and June? Do I have that right? Yep, May and July. Can
Yeah,
you signify?
Sherry, just
Yeah.
point of order, if you didn't see it in the chat, was I think that Josh just made a motion for May and didn't include July. So either way you want to do it, re-motion it to include
Okay,
both.
so let's re-motion it for a motion to approve the minutes for May and July executive committee meeting.
I'll approve, motion for approval.
And then I need a second.
Second.
Okay, got that, Aaliyah? And everyone in favor, yay or hands up?
Yay.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone need to abstain?
Josh abstain.
Josh abstains, okay. So the yays have it, so that is passed. And then Clay, I will let you go ahead and put your request in on approval.
Thank you, Sherry. And I believe, given the questions that have been answered in the discussion that we have had, I believe that the three can be approved together. And so if there is any concern with that, please note it. But my recommended action.
Would you mind restating the three just for the record?
Yes, I am. So the recommended action would be to approve the co-enrollment requirements for WorkSource Oregon programs, local workforce development board certification, and local plan development and modification policies.
I move approval of all three of those policies. This is Kim.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Yay or
Aye.
aye?
Aye.
Okay, and anyone opposed? And anyone need to abstain? Okay, the ayes have it, and that is approved. Thank you, Clay, for shepherding this and bringing it back and waiting till we got enough people. So I appreciate all your hard work on that. All right, so we will circle back up and we are going to go to section 2, which is the strategic plan, board metrics and WorkSource Oregon performance measures updates. But before we do that, I just want to give you all a quick update on the Summer Workforce Development Policy Institute that Todd, I, and Julia attended. Oh, Todd, do you have a question?
Oh, I just wanted to flag for you to not forget that we need to just relatively quickly go through the bylaw changes and approve the bylaws. They were at the bottom
I'm
of
sorry. I
that
see
list
that.
that Clay was on.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. So I don't
That's okay.
have those to go through. Do you have those to go through, Todd?
Yes.
Okay, let's do
I
that.
can pull it up.
I am bound by the quorum, so we got to do anything quorum related right now. I would like to move on, but we cannot. Okay,
Sorry.
it's okay.
Okay. I can share them, Ali, if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay. I think. There, can you see those?
Yes.
Okay, so as some of you may recall, these were discussed at our July meeting, and we went through them and made any changes that you all thought were warranted. So they are in, I wish my friend Ken Madden was here because he always is a stickler about making sure these are in track changes. So to honor him, they are. So we tweaked the mission to reflect current strategic plan language. We also added the values that are in our agreements in terms of how we conduct business, which are outlined there. Under our reputation, there was an additional add-on around inclusivity that was included from our most current iteration of the 25-26 strategic plan. Onto page 4. We did a little work here. I think Kim Parker had some great comments here around language. So we struck typically consist of and replaced with include but not limited to around the technical advisors piece here, section 2. State agency program leads and or staff from the following areas that comprise WorkSource Oregon as defined by one of our other committees, the WTDB Continuous Improvement Committee, or a little bit of caveat there for wiggle room from other agencies, areas, or partners. So we struck what was previously there and then pulled directly from the WorkSource Oregon definition programs that were approved by the Continuous Improvement Committee and the full WTDB. So those are all there. Of course, we struck C as was not relevant and added as needed to others. And let's see, I contributed their expertise during the WTDB meetings. That did not change. Assisting in the prep of meeting materials and participating in committees or work groups as needed. Under Article 4, Section 1, meeting procedures, I just put this in here as a friendly reminder. It's been a while, but as I was prepping to go through here, I thought it might be nice to call it out. So I'm just going to read it. Some of you are great at this, others maybe not so much. So a friendly reminder here so that I make sure I lean into the roles and responsibilities of my job. Regular attendance at meetings is expected of each board member. A member shall notify the chair or the board staff, that would be me, or Aaliyah, at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting if the member is unable to attend. In an emergency, the member shall contact the chair or staff as soon as reasonably possible. Failure to notify shall be recorded in the minutes as an unexcused absence, which we do, and participation by video or telephone conference is allowed. So just a friendly reminder, we have been requested to sort of lean into this a little bit more than in the past. Not police is the wrong word, but encourage you to abide by this item B under section 1, meeting procedures. There was also another piece here, I think that not quite yet. This was added for clarity's sake, because I think it came up during our July meeting. So H under this same section, email voting shall not be allowed. Voting members shall be present to cast their vote in person. Obviously, this changed in 2020, virtually or by phone at any WTDB full board meeting, committee, or task force meeting, or any other WTD meeting where a vote is needed to take action. So we do that. Everybody pretty much knows that, but just thought it, for clarity's sake, should be added. This is the one under proxy, section 2, voting rights, that Ken asked about and wanted me to check into. I did. Proxy and absentee voting is not permitted we are correct about that, except for the official designee of the governor, which would be Sarah Means in this case. If the governor wanted to stand in for Sarah, where Sarah stand in for the governor, I think that we would go ahead and allow that as a proxy vote. But according to Oregon Department of Justice's public records and meeting manual, proxy voting by members is prohibited. It looks like Josh has a quick question here.
Go ahead and finish if you want, Todd. I got several.
Okay. Under quorum, we updated the language from previous language to not be so prescriptive, since the membership numbers and representation by sector, i.e. business, public, nonprofit, others, varies. So we shifted that to a percentage of at least 50% of business representatives and majority of all WTD members. And 50, we utilized we utilized Kim Parker's suggestion with the 50% plus one. So that's all updated as per our conversation. We updated the current policy advisor's title here, struck this language as it is in the WorkSource Oregon definition. Under task forces and other committees, noted that if the chair is so inclined, co-chairs can be appointed, and one of these co-chairs shall be a WTDB member, and the other a system partner in key leadership role, and updated to today's date. Okay, toss it back your way, Josh, for questions.
Okay. Starting back, Todd, with section 2 under the technical advisors piece there. One question and then one comment on the as defined by piece of that. Is that the A through N, what we're talking about there?
It is these. These are the formal
Okay.
definition programs that are included in WorkSource Oregon, with these additionals outlined 1 through 7 also comprised. And if you'd like, Josh, we have a document that shows that in formal form that was approved by both this body as well as the full board. I can send to you.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that correctly. And then the other thing, and I'm always kind of thinking about this with bylaws and policy stuff, is, you know, should we call out the continuous improvement committee on there? Just because if for some reason at some point the funding for that goes away, then we would have to go back and change our bylaws again. So just a thought there. I have another question, or I think maybe a comment down in section 4, the meeting procedures, or I'm sorry, Article 4, Section 1.
There?
Yeah, so it's the number H. So I'm assuming that this is just to be transparent to the public and kind of consistent with Article 4.1, that if an emergency vote was needed, the chair would call an emergency meeting and the vote would be taken at that time. So in essence, we'll never have a special meeting in which we would vote by email.
Yes.
Okay.
We are not allowed to vote. We are not.
Yeah, we're not allowed to vote
We're
by
out of
email
compliance if we vote by
by
email.
the state statute.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure I was clear.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes there's things like this are barriers for folks, and so.
Yeah,
And
it's been challenging from time to time for sure, Josh, and we've tried to overcome that and even suggest that in certain situations, email voting should, like the statute should change, the reg should change, but to no avail. We still are not allowed to do it per public meeting law.
Sure. Yeah, I get it. And then section 4 on the quorum, piece A, I like the changes that were made there. I think that's much more clear and easier to understand. And then Article 5 on the committees, section 1A. Again, this is a similar comment to my earlier one, calling out the governor's policy advisor by title. I mean, maybe that should just say, the governor's designee or policy advisor, something like that. Again, if that title
Oh, I like
changes,
that.
then we have to, again, change the bylaws again. So just some thoughts there that I had as I was going through it.
Okay, but I'm a little confused. Don't you have policy advisor there, Todd?
Yeah, but to Josh's point, Sherry, well, a couple of thoughts. It doesn't necessarily make sense every time, but quite frequently, every time a new policy advisor that oversees workforce is appointed by the governor, their title can change.
Oh,
Sometimes
so
it's
just say
workforce and
policy
labor,
advisor.
sometimes it's
I got you.
workforce and economic development. So, that said, the other thought is we try, as you know, to revise and update these bylaws annually. So most frequently, Josh, when we do the update, I make it a point to update the title of the current policy advisor. That said, it makes all sorts of sense to just leave it more general and say the governor's policy appropriate workforce policy advisor or something like that.
Yeah, you could just say the governor's designated workforce policy advisor. That's it.
Sure.
It's whoever she designates to be the policy advisor for workforce. It's not going to be the healthcare policy advisor. So
Exactly.
it's whoever that is. And as it relates to the kick in the bylaws, I do believe we discussed that. I can't fully remember, but I do believe we discussed that. And I think there were reasons that it's not in the bylaws because it exists somewhere else. Was that the
Well, we
discussion,
do have,
Todd?
it is mentioned under section 2, technical advisors,
Yeah,
right? WorkSource Oregon is defined by the WTDB Continuous Improvement Committee, KIC. We could scratch that and we could just say as defined by the WTDB because the KIC is part of the WTDB. And then to your point,
right.
Josh,
Oh, sorry. I don't hate to interrupt, but that is the point. And one of the things we want to be careful of doing is implying that the kick exists outside of the WTDB so that it gets a little confusing. So that's, I think, the thing.
so I'll go ahead and leave it unless y'all want me to do something else. Yeah.
I think we can leave it for now. And as you say, we do review it every annually.
Okay. So if there are no other questions or conversation, then we just need a motion to approve. I'll update and send them out once we get that approval, Sherry.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Need a
I'll
second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, if you can give me an eye or a thumbs up.
Aye.
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 And
Aye.
any more eyes? Anyone opposed? Anyone need to abstain? Okay, well, the ayes have it. All right, have we voted on everything we need the quorum for?
Yes.
All right, all right. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Todd and Clay, for the detailed information and for taking, especially Todd, for taking the conversation we had a while ago and putting that back together and tracking changes is always great because it helps people see where the changes are happening. I think it's very helpful, actually. So I was going to say, we're going to go back up to section 2, talk about the strategic plan, board metrics, and the WorkSource Oregon performance measures. But before we do that, I wanted to just say that Julia, Todd, and I We're at the National Governors Association Summer Workforce Development Policy Institute in Billings, Montana, last week, which Billings, Montana is a pretty small place. So that was interesting. But that aside, it was very interesting. The first day is the day where Julia and her counterparts, workforce development policy advisors, state liaisons for workforce development partnerships met. And then beginning that second day, the state workforce board chairs and state liaisons and everybody, met. So some of the things that came up were investing in youth pathways, a big conversation about from the classroom to the career, like how to make that smoother, preparing workers to thrive in the AI economy. We talked also about what states need from the National Governors Association. One thing Todd and I talked about is we could potentially use the technical assistance piece that they offer, maybe a little bit more than we do. And that might look like having NGA representatives come speak to the board, maybe helping to give the board some higher level context about how governors around the country, are working with their boards and what their interface is. Several states talked about the NGA staff coming and helping them launch different projects and things of that nature. And I think that's not something we really have used the staff for, right, Todd? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think the last time we did was back when we moved into that high performing workforce model, which was 2016, 17. They came and facilitated a session that included helping a little bit to inform the strategic plan and integrate into that plan call outs from that high performance workforce board sort of model, Sherry. But yeah, you're right. Other than that, I don't think they've come out to a board meeting or oh, that's not true. They did come to a meeting that we had. I remember Ann was stuck at a train for that meeting out at Craig Campbell's old stopping grounds at OMIC, and helped us with the conversation and facilitated that because it was close to some work they were doing in DC and across the country in workforce development. For life of me, can't remember exactly what that was, Sherry, but yeah, I do think, again, per our conversation in Billings, there's an opportunity to maybe engage with them on some of that TA a little bit more.
Yeah, it sounds like people who do really get a lot out of it. The governor of Montana spoke. It was interesting. I mean, one of the things is this is a conference, and sometimes states will speak about, Todd and I have a bad habit of Googling of all the innovative things they're doing. And then I look at their education and their employment numbers, and it's just not matching up to what they're saying. But is what they say. So so that can be interesting. A couple of the things that I thought were interesting that came out, it was there was conversation about reciprocity. Some states are working on better reciprocity of licensing between states. And I think that is a consistent problem, especially when you're talking about certification employment and even advanced degree employment. Like, how do you smooth that over? And a suggestion I had made to them is it would be great for maybe NGA to do a session on states that have smoother reciprocity programs or examples they could share with other people. Like, that would be super helpful, I think. And then another conversation that was had that I thought was really interesting was a conversation came up about certification and how our states are state boards or states generally the right place to do it, because many companies know what they need and they actually have in-house training programs. And if we are creating certifications or credentials that companies don't value, are we really doing the right thing? We don't want to send people down a road for something that's not super valuable. And do we need to work more with corporations who already have, what was the business they mentioned? It was I don't know if it was an aerospace company or whatever, but they have like thousands of hours of trainings that they send their employees through. So maybe we need to find out more about what already exists in the marketplace and work with those folks to be the basis of these credentials and certification, as opposed to us coming up with it. So I thought that was interesting. And a lot of other stuff. The Tennessee, the governor turned over the funding process to their state board. So the funding now uniformly goes through their state board. So that was interesting. And I don't know, Julia. I don't know if Julia is still on, but I don't know if anything from your day you wanted to share, or Todd.
Sure, thanks, Sherry. I can just chime in. On the day that was for my counterparts from all the states, there was a lot of discussion about workforce system governance, how different states are organized, how their local boards are organized. Some states are consolidating local boards. Some states are consolidating WIOA programs into one agency. Many states are already consolidated. But there was some good discussion about that, which has been relevant to conversations we've had here and with the governor's office. I think that's the most relevant for this group. There was a very interesting presentation by Pennsylvania about piloting ChatGPT in state government. I thought VenCat might be interested in that. They got a lot of good data on that pilot. So something for me to take back to my state agency folks. And yeah, I think that's all that I would like to share.
Yeah, I'm sure you covered. Thanks, Julia. You both covered a lot. I would just add a few things. We heard a lot about the governor's 406 jobs plan, and part of that
In Montana, just to be clear.
Yeah. Oh, I thought we were talking about Montana.
I mean, we were talking about being there, but it was a lot of states there. So I was just.
Oh, yeah.
just
Sorry.
clarifying.
So in Billings, we heard from the governor, and one of the things he talked about quite extensively was the 406 jobs plan, which I forget what the numbers were, but it is the area code of Montana. So there was
that's what it is. And then they have some kind of acronym to go with it, but I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. But one of the key things there that I thought was an important data piece is that Montana just recently went over 1 million people total population. But their data folks, similar to our wonderful research department over at the employment department, did some work and were able to come up with about 100,000 people in Montana that are currently out of the workforce. And they're trying to figure out who those people are and dig down and disaggregate the data to better understand that. But as you might expect, they include people that have given up trying to find employment, people who've dropped out of high school or other education and training, people who are previously incarcerated and underserved folks. So they're really trying to spend a bunch of time trying to figure out how can we grow more of our own by tapping into those populations in a number of ways, which Sherry already touched on, some of what Julie said, and in ways that he also mentioned, which is really a strong focus on entrepreneurship and building training and programs around that to build a talent pipeline in that space. He also talked about a lot of work they're doing in the registered apprenticeship space. I'll just give one example there from not only Montana, but 2 other states. And then I'll wrap it up in terms of what I have to say. But I spoke with folks from the state of Indiana and from the state of Wisconsin about recent, which, by the way, are very well known for their successes and sort of broad spectrum use of registered apprenticeships in their states. So best practices for sure. And one interesting thing that I discovered in chatting with Indiana is that Purdue University just recently started a program where registered apprenticeship folks that are participating in a cybersecurity registered apprenticeship have the opportunity through Purdue to align that with pursuit of a bachelor's degree through Purdue. So it's pretty exciting. I hadn't really heard that twist before. And we've invited both those states to participate in some internal staff meetings around what we're doing here at the Office of Workforce Investments around registered apprenticeship to hopefully inform that work, not just here, but statewide. And one other thing, I guess there was one other thing. I lied. I apologize. I thought about this earlier in terms of getting the NGA technical assistance more potentially integrated into our work. At the past Talent Summit, we invited NGA TA folks to participate in some of our panels. So I think there's an opportunity likely moving forward to do some more of that and include them in the programming of the 2026 Talent Summit, which is coming up in April, late April of next year. Thanks, Sherry.
Yeah, no, that would be a great idea. And the one other thing I wanted to mention was they had a session on aligning the talent pipeline for economic growth. And we heard from the senior advisor and deputy cabinet secretary for Governor Newsom in California, and they really have gone a long way down the road with breaking silos. Based on their description. I always say that, but based on their description, they have really found a way to break silos so that things like BOLI doesn't stand in the way of the apprenticeship program, or this doesn't stand in the way of that. And, you know, her perspective was, it's the governor. The governor said, this is what it is, and you better be doing that. And I don't want to hear somebody coming back to me with, you know, some nonsense or something different. And that's what it was. And I think that really sounds like, and I always use these cautions because I don't live there, but it sounds like it has helped them break through a log jam around innovative ways of connecting what the workforce needs and what the workforce is available and what the state's role in that is. And so I thought that was incredibly helpful. And Todd and I also talked about maybe also having someone from one of the states come and present to the board. So these are things to consider. And if these are things people would be interested in, you know, please let us know. How often a year do these happen, Todd? Is it twice a year?
Yeah, it's twice a year. There's one that is earmarked for every late winter, early spring, and that's always held in Washington, D.C. I believe the reason that our division of the NGA, which is the best practice division on workforce and economic opportunity, does that is that oftentimes the governors themselves meet the Saturday after our group meets, so that if we want to, as a group, attend and observe the governor's meeting, where we are able to do that. That's happened several times. And then the second meeting of every year is a meeting where an individual hosts or state hosts. And that is a competitive process whereby states pitch the Governors Association, and the executive committee of our NGA group votes on which state wins. And as Sherry said, this year it was Billings, Montana. We did attend a rodeo, although we didn't learn a lot about workforce.
I did
in the
not
rodeo.
attend a rodeo.
Well, you were near the rodeo, yeah.
I was near the rodeo, but I
you
did not
vogued
attend.
when the rodeo started.
I did.
It's all good.
But yeah, and just also inside baseball, full transparency. There's a little, you know, some of you may have heard the National Governors Association has a little bit of strife in this political climate, with some states some governors wanting to opt out. And I will say, at the state board chairs working meeting where we vote on things, there were not a ton of chairs there. And so they're working on trying to figure out how to get more chairs. But I think there are some states that are just like, and the NGA has been tepid in any kind of advocacy, you know, so WIOA has a lot of equity language in it. And it's not clear what that's going to mean with this administration, and are they going to go through it? And NGA has been very tepid about that. So I think it's Minnesota and I forget the other state. Minnesota and another state that said they weren't gonna come and they weren't sure they're gonna pay dues. And then the smattering of board chairs who were there for the official board work of the board's meeting was quite thin. So we'll see what that portends. But that be that as it may, the NGA as an organization has resources and materials and trainings that still may be helpful to us. So there's that strategic planning status report. I'm gonna turn that over to Todd. Todd, is the strat plan absent the metrics discussion ready to go up on the website yet?
Yes, I think, well, Aaliyah would know. I think it may already be there. I'm not sure. Aaliyah has been amazing in helping us update and refresh the website. I don't think we've quite gotten to pretty sizable refresh, but I know that she does regular quick maintenance anytime it makes sense. So I think it's there. Am I right?
Yes, you're
Okay,
right.
great.
It is. I didn't see it.
I was
don't know.
checking.
Okay. So I don't
Go
know
to
if I
the go to the planning and policy page, and then it should be near the top.
So planning and policy page, I have workers, employers, students, educators, and trainers. There it is. I'm on my phone. Is that the strategic plan scorecard?
Yep.
Correct.
Do we want to put like a year there? That might be helpful to identify 2025 to 2026. Would that be okay?
It
Okay.
may, hold on, Sherry. I'll show you I can share my screen.
It does say that once you click on it, but I'm just saying right here, yeah, it says that there, but I'm saying on the, like previously on the page, we've had 2023 to 2024 strategic plan. That's all
I
I'm
see what you
saying.
mean.
It
Yeah, we
just,
can do that for sure.
yeah, that's all. So you
I
can
will say
identify.
just above in the paragraph, it does say 2025 to 2026 strategic plan and then goes over all of the
Okay,
imperatives.
okay. I may be more literal than the average website reader. I don't know, but
We can definitely just add the 2025, 2026 in front of strategic plan
Yeah.
to make it more clear. Sherry, not a problem at all.
Yep. So, but yes, Todd, any other status updates on that for us?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sherry. And, I just wanted to say thank you to Josh. Josh, I forgot to say that, but I really appreciated your paying attention to the bylaws and your good questions and comments. So thanks a lot. So moving on to the strategic plan, we're excited. Well, maybe I'm in particular excited that three of us are going to talk about this today. The reason I'm excited is not only as a refresh for all of you, we like to do that on a regular basis so we don't lose sight of sort of what we've outlined here and to keep our focus. But I'm also excited that after I provide a brief refresh for you, to toss it over to Julia and to Miranda, who are both leaders and managers here at the Office of Workforce Investment, to talk about already their engagement and support and advocacy around the strategic plan in their world. Julia around a response that has been timely and very productive, in my humble opinion, around the governor's letter that you all remember was sent to the board, particularly asking agency leadership and the WTDB to lean into performance measure development, data sharing, and reporting around your role and responsibility of holding the workforce system accountable. And then secondarily, but just as important, we've got Miranda Scheiding here to share some what I think is super exciting news in terms of staffing capacity and support from folks that she's responsible for and that Julia are here in our office to help with implementing and tracking progress around the strategic plan. So I'm just briefly going to share the plan, which you've seen before. This has not changed around vision, mission, position, and reputation. Of course, we added in this most recent iteration our shared values and agreements around working collaboratively and the importance of that, transparency and trust, data decision making, and fourthly, being bold and innovative, which we carried over again from our values and agreements document. On our second page, we get into the 4 imperatives with corresponding objectives that you all approved. Those imperatives being around an inclusive workforce system, strategic alignment of systems and partners, better understanding and getting clear on improved use and impact of the workforce system. And then last there, this is definitely a new one, one that I think many of you are interested and excited about, and that's about holding the workforce system leadership accountable. And then our last page are those 18 board metrics. As you recall, there's sort of 3 themes in terms of outcomes. I highlighted those green: awareness building toward positive outcomes, influence to impact positive outcomes, or authority to affect positive outcomes. So clearly, these were tied to awareness, influence, and authority for you all in your roles. And then Julia, I think, is going to chat about, then followed by Miranda, on the specifics of capacity and staff and what she's doing. But Julia's going to sort of get into this performance measure work, which I think connects to the metric 15 and 18 around the governor soliciting advice and recommendations broadly on specific topics from the WTDB, the letter, and the governor calling for joint reporting by larger workforce system partners on shared workforce success goals. So that's it. If there's any questions, happy to entertain those. If not, I'll toss it over to Julia.
Okay,
Right.
doesn't look like there are any questions. So as Todd mentioned, and you'll all recall, the governor sent a letter to the WTDB reconfirming the WTDB's oversight authority of WorkSource Oregon, Oregon's public workforce system. And that letter also directed state agency partners to work together to propose to the WTDB a set of performance metrics for WorkSource Oregon. And to that end, I've convened my counterparts from other agencies who lead administration of Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act titles. So HEC, OED, the Employment Department, the Department of Human Services, Oregon Commission for the Blind, and also a representative of the local workforce boards. And we have identified a set of performance metrics. I'll give you a little preview right now, but I'll have a memo and a full presentation at the September full board meeting. Give you all a preview here. Is it sharing? Yes. Okay, great.
Yes.
It might be a little bit small. Is that what I'm sensing from Sherry?
Yes, but I realized that I can make it big
Okay.
myself. There's a little plus sign. I can do it myself. Thank you.
Great. So as you'll recall, in the letter the governor sent to the WTDB, she requested that the board focus on WIOA performance metrics, but then also additional metrics around high demand industries in Oregon, career advancement, and customer satisfaction. So this is sort of a combination of those metrics. And I'll just quickly run through these 4. So there are a couple different categories. For employment, we'll look at employment rate second and fourth quarters after exiting one of the WIOA programs. Those are WIOA performance metrics. So we already have those for all of the programs. We just need to bring them together, but that will be easy to do. And then we also are proposing to look at the employment rate second quarter after exit in high demand industries or in demand or high demand industries, that will need some further analysis. We have the data, we just haven't crunched those data for all of the programs. And we'll also need a definition from the WTDB of what it means by in demand, high demand industries or priority industries even. And so that, Todd can talk a little bit more about the plan there, or perhaps Clay as part of the talent assessment coming up. And then also employment rate second quarter after exit in high wage, high demand occupations. This would require a new data collection. The employment department's wage data, which is how we get all of the occupation or employment outcomes data, does not currently collect occupation. And so they would need to add that to their collection. So Andrew, I know you've already heard from Bob Uhlencott in your agency about his desire to collect occupation, but I think this will be a recommendation from my group of agency folks to the WTDB and to agency leaders in the governor's office, is to add that to our collection. Next, we have retention. So a measure of that is employment rate 4 quarters after exit, so a little bit longer after exiting the program. And then also, is the person employed by the same employer in the second and fourth quarters after exit? Those are both already WIOA performance metrics, so we all collect those already. For earnings, we have median earnings. Again, that is WIOA performance metrics, so we all collect that. We also are recommending that we look at the percent of participants with a wage gain second quarter after exit, so compared to when they entered the program. We have these data, would just require additional number crunching. And same with the next one down, digging a little deeper, the number of participants with earnings above self-sufficiency wages for their region or for the state. We could decide which we wanted to look at. Then for credential attainment, the WIOA performance metrics that we all have already is the percent of participants who attain a recognized post-secondary credential or a secondary diploma or the equivalent. And the additional metric there that we would recommend is that credential in in-demand, high-demand industry. We have these data. We would just need to do some analysis. Measurable skills gain. This is a current WIOA performance metric, so we all have that. And it's sort of an intermediate measure of credential attainment. So maybe the participant hasn't completed the credential, but they have made a measurable skills gain in their work towards completing that credential. That will be valuable in their job search. Career advancement, this is the trickiest one with the current data that we have. So one metric that we came up with was, is the participant employed by the same employer in the second and sixth, or it could be the second and fourth quarter after exit, and did they have a wage gain? So this obviously isn't a perfect measure of career advancement. It could have just been, like a cost of living increase, wage gain. It doesn't mean they're necessarily moving into a higher level job, but it is a wage gain. So it is a positive impact. The other similar, so basically a different flavor on this, the same thing, but in high demand, in demand industries. And then like above with employment, what would be great if we could look at is, did the person advance to a higher level occupation? We do not have those data, so that would require a new data collection. Even if we did have occupation, it would still take some deeper analysis. It's not readily, like if we collected standard occupational codes, it's not readily obvious what is a higher level occupation. So we would still need to look a little bit more deeply and do some deeper analysis, and it would be equivalent. And then let's see, lastly, customer satisfaction, job seeker satisfaction, and employer satisfaction. So the employment department currently has a customer satisfaction survey that they deploy through WorkSource Oregon centers. Andrew can probably speak more to this, but there are certainly some limitations to that survey. Many of the responses often are around unemployment insurance and not actually the workforce services delivered in WorkSource Oregon centers. So it doesn't really provide the best picture there, but at least there is a survey. The other programs, most of the other WIOA programs do have some sort of customer satisfaction survey for job seekers, not for employers. And their surveys are not the same as the employment department surveys. So there would need to be some unified data collection, all agreeing on the same survey or the same survey questions, and some new data collection for the programs. I do think in talking to Jim Farr at the employment department, there's some opportunity as they're modernizing their labor exchange and case management system. And that will be for WIOA Title III and for WIOA Title I, to deploy surveys through there so that they are more targeted on folks that are receiving workforce services, not just unemployment insurance. So that is what I have to share today. Happy to take any questions now, but again, I'll be having a longer presentation at the full board meeting.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, I did have two questions. I guess the first question is baseline. Do all of these or do some of these already have baseline? Are we baselining them? And then, I'm just curious as to what we're measuring against. That's the first question.
Yeah, so we have historical data for all of the WIOA performance metrics, so the ones that said current next to them, and I can provide that in my memo. And then for some of the programs, Title I and Title III mainly, we do have some of the other metrics through PRISM, the OED's performance reporting system that aggregates data. So we can also include that as part of the memo and presentation for the full board meeting.
And I don't know if this is possible or if it would legally fit into, but I go back to the NGA and the question about whether the credentialing that we are helping people get is relevant to employers. And I'm wondering, is there a way to get at that question? Or, is it just not something that you all would reach into?
I'm not sure that that fits in this set of performance metrics, but it is certainly a question that we need to tackle. As you all probably have heard, the Pell Grant was recently expanded to shorter term workforce programs. And the
You know what, Julia, actually, I don't know if everybody has heard that. Would you mind talking about that a little bit more? I totally forgot about the conversation at the conference.
I can, but I won't have very much else to say besides what I just said. But essentially, the Pell Grant, the federal Pell Grant, has been expanded to more types of post-secondary education programs. So a lot more workforce, shorter term credential programs. We're still waiting on guidance about what that actually means, what latitudes the state will have to decide what counts and what doesn't for the Pell Grant. But that's something that the HEC will definitely be tackling. And then similarly, the Oregon Opportunity Grant, which is sort of our state version of the Pell Grant, also has been expanded to some shorter term credential programs. And the HEC will also be in the process of figuring out what that means and what programs count. Some of you might recall several years ago, the Adult Attainment Advisory Committee, that was a committee of the Workforce and Talent Development Board and the HEC, that set the adult attainment goal for this state. As part of that work, Clay Martin also did a ton of work to develop a definition and list of credentials of value, or what we called credentials that work. And so I think there's a really great opportunity to resurrect that great work, which sort of died after we did all that work to develop it, and potentially utilize that as our definition of what counts for those programs. But I think that also, Sherry, can speak to your question about the quality of the credential programs.
Thank you for that. Any questions anybody has? All right, anything that is going on in your world that you'd like to add that's relevant to any of this?
I'll add, it's along the lines of grants, but at the federal level, we have two programs that are likely going to be impacted. One is our camp program, which serves immigrant students and their families. And then one is, oh my gosh, HEP, and I can't even tell you what it stands for. My mind is escaping me. So we are, our camp program is going away. We're funding the other program through October, but it's just really a result of my own words, just not a responsive administration when it comes to informing higher education institutions on the status of grants and the renewal of those grants. So we're losing some funding, which, you know, if it impacts one student, to me, that's significant. So I just wanted to put that on the radar just in terms of grants. So.
You know, thank you for that. It's important for us to know because this is a system, right? That's what we're always talking about. And things that impact parts of the system impact the whole. Because there are some contradictory things coming out of the government. There is the Pell Grant usage, but then there's also hostility to targeted outreach and community colleges and training programs for low-income racial minorities. So it's very confusing as to how it'll all shake out. So it would be helpful if we keep each other up to date on things that are happening in our world so that we have a read on that. Because on the one hand, we may think one thing is going to happen, but on the execution side, there's another directive. So it can be a little confusing. Yeah. So anyone else? Anyone else? All right. Well, as I look at the agenda, I feel as if, and I could be wrong, but I feel as if we have accomplished it since we went backwards and forwards and backwards in time. Thank you all. I know people
Hey,
always can
Sherry,
use yes, Todd.
you were close. There's just one more
What am I
piece.
missing?
Miranda Scheiding, who,
Oh, I'm sorry,
uh,
Miranda.
yeah, there
Yes,
she
I'm
is.
so sorry, Miranda. Sorry about that. Julia and I thought we were like done in our conversation and we went on to something else. Okay.
It's all good. It's all good.
No worries. Hi, everybody. I'm Miranda Scheiding. I work at the Office of Workforce Investments and am a program manager. And I've been working really closely with Todd and Julia on some of the components on the WTDB strategic plan implementation and how that impacts our office. And we've talked a little bit about increasing capacity associated with the strategic plan implementation and what that means. And we've added a few folks' voices and time into the conversation. Todd shared the scorecard at the beginning of this topic. And one of the things that we've done is Jennifer Denning, who's on this call right now, developed a tracker for us internally. So the first page of the tracker is looking at those board metrics. And what we did earlier this week was identified a point person in the office to lead that, whether it's gathering of data or tracking the status of the thing, whatever it is. That's our first step with that. And then as Julia and Todd and I were talking about this a little bit further, I added another sheet to this document that has the imperatives. And what I started to do was crosswalking some of the other bodies of work that we have going on, whether it's work within the the Office of Workforce Investments. So thinking about the existing or future work that we have going on that could be potential deliverables for us to be tracking in association with the WTDB strategic plan. And then also crosswalking the HEC strategic plan, which was just put together and is starting to be implemented right now. And then the defining OE, which is our body of work that we have internally, kind of like a strategic plan with specific goals and objectives and deliverables associated with that. So we're really trying to add some more capacity for the WTDB, as Todd said at the beginning of the conversation, and think about specific sector work that we're doing, thinking about the youth programs that we have and what we're doing that's connected to that work, and move this work forward in a little bit of a different way this round. Did I miss anything, Todd? Did I cover all the things you were hoping for me to announce?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much, Miranda. And I just want to say we are so I guess, privileged to have Miranda here with us on our team now. As many as you many of you may remember, we were able to grab Miranda as a previous STEM Hub director up in sort of Northwest vicinity, Portland Metro West. So she brings a great lens to the conversation that not only includes the public workforce system, but K-12, STEM, and many other spaces. So her strategic thinking and contribution to the team is amazing. So thank you, Miranda. I just wanted to show sort of, this isn't the exact iteration we're on yet, or working on currently. But this just can kind of give you a flavor of the different things that we're trying to do here. In a much more comprehensive, detailed, and I think meaningful way for you as board members to sort of track results. This is an example, obviously, of that third page of board metrics that I flashed up early, and the 18 of those. So we had another work session this morning with staff and went through and talked about priority levels, status, who owns what. So this is evolving as we speak, and more is getting added by staff, Miranda, Julia, Clay, and I. So again, not to be redundant, but I think I can partially speak for Clay that heretofore it's pretty much been him and I trying to lift this all up, and to have added capacity from other staff here under Julia and Miranda has really been helpful and energizing. And ultimately, we hope that it translates into better delivery of projects in a more timely manner across the system. That obviously remains to be seen. And then importantly, gives you all on a regular basis more detail around the status updates than we've been able to get before, because those have been pretty high level, you know, and pretty much simply focused on, you know, red, green, yellow in terms of status. So I think it's fair to say that we're all looking forward to see how this plays out for you all as members to help move WTDB efforts on implementation around the strategic plan forward.
Yeah, and I want to say, Miranda, we are, as the board, also happy to have you on. Sorry for moving through so quickly there, but I know Todd has expressed that this is will be a great help to he and Clay and to us getting clarity and getting more depth of information. And, you know, this is in response to the role of the board and wanting to make sure that we are able to execute and answer these questions. So just highlighting that for people on the call. So any additional questions on this topic? Anybody? Okay, is there anything else on this agenda I'm unable to see with my eyeballs?
I think you're good. I do have one quick announcement, though. It just happened today. So as many of you know that have worked with me over the years on scheduling and planning full board meetings in particular, it can get pretty tricky. I've been working most recently on 3 potentials for September and December. One of those has been with Steve Johnson and the work that he's doing with his Minority Workforce Board at NAMAC. The other is with our good friend and colleague, Adrian Bennings, PCC and Vigor Industrial as potential site to host a meeting. And behind the scenes, working with Amazon to see if there was an opportunity to connect with them, because we tried to do this before, but to no avail, to host a meeting either at their Troutdale facility or at their Woodburn facility. So those are all in play. It looks like we weren't able to make Vigor happen, although PCC was all over it, Adrian, to try and make that happen. So it looks like maybe we can target December for that. Steve and I are still going back and forth trying to figure out, what's next in terms of his group trying to host. But we just found out from Amazon, Sherry and I, by the way, bumped into a sort of a national representative from Amazon at NGA. And I reconnected with her from a previous NGA meeting in DC, and I tossed it out, and she accepted. So all that to just announce and prepare your planning that we will be meeting September 12th at the Amazon location in Woodburn. They're going to host it. They've got a boardroom there, and they're going to provide y'all a tour to see one of the most state-of-the-art Amazon facilities, apparently in the Northwest, for sure in Oregon, and maybe the country. So that should be interesting.
Todd, you're very in the lead. You were so excited about going there because of why? The robot.
Oh yeah, the robot. Well, oh yeah, that was see, that happened prior to the rodeo.
Oh, okay.
When we were talking to that nice, I forget her name, but Sherry and I met this nice woman from Lake Tahoe so this is related, a little bit different but similar, who is from Lake Tahoe, and her husband, ironically, works at Agility Robotics here in Salem, which was started by an ex-professor from Oregon State University's engineering department. I think this gentleman also was a graduate of Oregon State University. And we've been trying to get them to host because we've heard great things about Agility Robots. So since she's married to one of the partners, I think in not the too distant future, we'll be able to also visit Agility Robots here in Salem. And it sounded like, Sherry, do I remember this right? That the Amazon facility in Woodburn has some of those Agility robots in it.
No,
Did she say that, or am I misreading?
No, they have robots. They just don't have Agility robots.
Okay,
she was saying they have. So the Amazon tour is going to be great because they actually have an entire robotics section where the robots are doing repetitive actions that could create repetitive motion injury. That's basically it. So lifting but she did say that they had different safety standards. So I'm not throwing any shade at Agility, but that they had different robots that they were using, that they actually weren't using Agility. But in any event, this Amazon tour you all may find very interesting because according to her, they really are blending the use of robots with the new jobs that the people have in relationship to the robots, including taking care of them, doing other types of work, overseeing. So it's an interesting kind of blend. And we give Todd a lot of credit for this because Todd really hustled this. He had already met her, like he said, at a different conference, and he really converted this into an opportunity quickly in the conference. So
thanks, Sherry. I also think there's an opportunity to get AWS back on the board. We did have previous representative from Amazon, but he was just so busy back then that it just made it really difficult for him to attend. And as many of you may know, Amazon is pretty involved in workforce development on many levels. So I think there's an opportunity there as well. Hopefully, we'll also get to hear about some piloting that they're still in the process of doing in major markets in California and Texas in particular, where now they are on a regular basis, it sounds like, according to Ellie, delivering your Amazon orders by drone, and they do it on your back doorstep or deck because oftentimes it's more secure and they don't have to worry about people in the major metro, particularly higher risk areas of stealing packages. So yeah, it should be pretty exciting, and we look forward to you being there and having an opportunity to learn from them in terms of what they're doing, and then also it should be a pretty good conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great work. Anything else now?
I don't have anything.
Because every time I say that, Todd, you actually do have something.
Yeah, I've
You-
been not
You always say
accurate
you
on that,
don't,
and
but you really
I feel
do.
like I'm lying. I don't. Well, let's check in with Clay. Clay, Aaliyah, anything else we need to talk about? Are we good?
We are good on my end.
Okay, thumbs up. All
Okay.
right. Well, thank you all. And again, for the full board meeting, I think the one at Amazon with the robots and whatnot is going to be really, really interesting. So hopefully we can get a good turnout for that. If you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay? We'll get a little time back.
Thank you so much,
right.
Sherry, and thank you all
Thank
for
you,
attending.
everybody.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
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 Thanks, everyone.